So it's a very sad day today if you're a Nintendo fan, because we all must say what Mario said in Super Mario 64, and it feels a little bit too soon. It feels like we can't say this quite yet, but now we must say it all in unison. So I'm going to do a little countdown here, and then we're all going to say it together. 3, 2, 1. So long, GaeBowser.
So long, GaeBowser.
Because Doug Bowser, president of Nintendo of America, has announced his retirement from the company come this December, just a few months from now. Doug Bowser, the Bowz Man, is leaving Nintendo of America. Now, we're going to talk about Dougie and his long-lasting impact on the Nintendo brand. We're going to talk about the successor that has been announced, because there's been some questions about that. But the first portion of this video, we got to focus on Douglas. Because, oh my God, it's 6 years has just flown right by. And there's so many timeless memories that I feel like people are going to take away from the tenure and tutelage of Doug Bowser. Of course, there was the introduction of Doug Bowser during a Nintendo Direct where they played on his name being Bowser. Like, it's kind of weird if you think about it. Like, did he get the job because his name was Bowser? I don't know. Like, I don't really know too much about the guy, but I don't think that that's necessarily something we can write off in this sort of situation. What else did Dougie do? Oh, when he showed up at the Game Awards and he was accepting awards, usually on the pre-show, very nervously, very, very sheepishly. He wasn't exactly, the best public speaker or anything like that, but he was there at least, with his head shined up, looking very nice, reminiscent of a MVG, clean shaven. He made an impact at the Game Awards when he would accept like Family Game of the Year and stuff like that. And then, of course, with the Nintendo Switch 2, like, so many memorable quotes, things that we could definitely take with us in the future. Introduction of variable game pricing to justify why some games on the Nintendo Switch 2 are $80 now versus $70 or $60. And, he said this term variable game pricing, and that's honestly something that has stuck with me for a very long time, because I look at the term variable game pricing and I'm like, what does it really mean? Because it doesn't seem like there's any sort of consistency to it. Like, Mario Kart World was $80. Switch 1 games that get re-released as Switch 2 versions, some of those are $80 if there's new content in it. Something like Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 is a Switch 1 game that's $70. You didn't really add anything into those. What was the development cost of those? Is it because it's a Mario game? Is that what it actually boils down to? Is that the true meaning of variable pricing? You base it on the IP that it involves, because a Donkey Kong at $80 might not sell as good as a Mario at $80. That a Metroid at $80 isn't going to exactly move the needle. But a Zelda game at $80, you could get away with that, right? So variable game pricing, definitely something that that we will keep with us. And of course, when talking about the price of the Switch 2, well, hey, pal, if the Switch 2 is too expensive for you, you can always pick up a Switch 1. And that's according to Doug Bowser, which I think is perfect marketing. Like, you don't like the price of this, well, you could buy the old system that we're also raising the price on. So maybe he was talking about used prices. Maybe that was kind of the mentality he was going with that. Go to eBay, go to Marketplace to pick up your Nintendo Switch 1 at a discounted price because you can't afford the Switch 2, pal. Go save up your money. And I think, all these timeless moments together really paint a picture of the Doug Bowser era of Nintendo of America, one that's going to go down as a legendary thing. I think he's right up there with Howard Lincoln as far as like questionable things being said and stuff. Look, all jokes aside here, the president of Nintendo of America, like I've said for a very long time, they are essentially a marketing firm for Nintendo of Japan, and it's been that way for a very long time. This isn't a situation like Sega during the 90s, where Sega of America and Sega of Japan were two distinctly different companies and even released distinctly different games. You know, Nintendo of America and the presidency has really had like two instances of being a popular thing. The first one being Howard Lincoln, all because of the wrong reasons and censorship and stuff like that. And the second one being Reggie Fils-Aimé. And of course, there are people, we want Reggie back. Reggie was so great. And I don't think Reggie was that great. Like, he was all right. He did some decent things, but he also did some very questionable things with not wanting to localize certain games and, you know, not localizing certain games during the time of region locking and stuff like that. He was a very charismatic person, though, so people gravitated towards the charisma. They liked, you know, how he didn't take himself very seriously. He seemed very, you know, anti-corporate, even though at the end of the day, I mean, Homeboy was a dude from Pizza Hut. Like, what was his gaming background? So Doug Bowser was definitely a more return to form for Nintendo and their presidency. But you also have to look at what's happening with Nintendo of Japan to potentially understand why. Because when Reggie was brought on was when Iwata was at his prime. And so those two went together like peas in a pod. Iwata was a very charismatic person for the Japanese audience and resonated with the American audience. And Reggie Fils-Aimé was a very charismatic American audience person that also resonated with the Japanese audience. You had that crossover with those two individuals. Whereas nowadays, it's more about business as usual. You know, you look at Furukawa, he's not out there doing presentations and talking with the press and stuff like that. And Doug Bowser was very similar to that. Now, there is a new person that will be brought in charge, Devin Pritchard, who is a 19-year veteran of the video game industry. They have been involved with Nintendo of America for sales and marketing and advertising and stuff like that. Satoru Shibata will also join Nintendo of America as a CEO, whereas Devin Pritchard is the COO. Some people are upset that Devin Pritchard is a woman. I mean, you know, I understand that the times we're in, but it's not like this was a person from Pizza Hut. like if this was just some random ass person, whatever, I guess you could ask questions, but this person has been with Nintendo for a very long time. It's not like they're just some random. So I don't, you know, I don't see, like, who cares if they're a woman as opposed to a dude? Like, you know, like I said, what the hell did Doug Bowser do during his tutelage? What did he do that was so memorable? Like, I guess this is kind of people wanting that, you know, that Reggie Fils-Aimé 2.0, but the video game industry has changed. Nintendo has changed. They don't need someone out there to be essentially a spokesperson for them to help sell their product. Now their product sells based on, you know, consumers, based on fans, based on things like that. So it's really a different time frame for Nintendo. And as far as like what's going to change in the future, like what can you expect from this new regime? Probably what we've been getting from Doug Bowser. Little to nothing, you know, like this is probably like, you know, I'm sure some people will make this out to be like a big deal and change is coming and, you know, things are going to get crazy and the new regime is going to change all this. It's like they're probably not going to do shit, dog. They ain't going to do nothing. They're going to go by the playbook that Nintendo of Japan wants, which is a very business-centric thing now because you don't have a charismatic individual like Iwata there anymore. And so this is what it's going to be. You know, maybe you'll see some different marketing. You'll see some different marketing ideas because this individual does have, you know, that's what they did for Nintendo previously, marketing and advertising and sales stuff. So maybe you'll see, you know, a stronger emphasis on that. But, you know, the Doug Bowser era will go down in history as it's a timeless era, man. Timeless era with so many memorable thing. So long, GaeBowser. So long, GaeBowser. You will be missed. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments down below. Are you shocked by this? Do you care? Because you probably shouldn't care. I'll just be honest with you. You probably shouldn't care. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.